Good afternoon all. We'll be starting our session that is Intelligent Transport System, and I would like to call our chair for the session Mr. Sagar Apte, CEO CarIQ India. Mr. Sir, come sir, thank you. I would also like to call our other panelist Mr. Arun Karna, Managing Director AT&T India. Mr. Damodar Sahu, Partner Industry Advisor Digital. Mr. Damodar. Okay. Sorry, so he'll be joining us soon. Mr. Jeevan, Talegaonkar, Engagement Lead ICT for Transport Solution, Region India, Ericsson. Mr. Kaushik Shah, Head ITS Product, KPIT. Mr. Kaushik. Okay. Mr. Nitin Akhaury, Managing Director, Decos Asia, India. Mr. Srinivas Kodali, Co-Founder, Openstats, India. Welcome, sir. Welcome all. Now I would like to request Mr. Sagar to take the session forward.
Say hi guys. So we have a good panel here to talk about intelligent transport systems, and what we like every panel actually meets outside and decides what they're going to talk about. Okay, so it's a little kept secret, but out there now. So what we were thinking is we want to make it more interesting. We wanted to make it in a way it is more valuable to everybody who is participating, and instead of being a very one-way discussion of the panel to tell you some world-changing idea after the next 20 years, we thought we'll do something which is within the next 5 years kind of a thing. So what I'm going to do is two things. One is I'm going to introduce the panel to you. They're going to come over, talk about their ideas, their thoughts when it comes to ITS, and then we kind of kick that session into a panel discussion. We're going to talk about 2-3 things that make the maximum amount of meaning or interest to the audience here. We want to keep it as lively as possible, so anybody has a question, just in between, raise your hand and we'll get a mic towards you to discuss that, right? The challenge when you're kind of setting up a panel, when something like intelligent transport system comes, it's very difficult to confine that to a set of ideas, right? So it could mean right from the hardware that goes into a vehicle to systems, technology like ADAS, it could mean VXI, vehicle to infrastructure, technologies, data, privacy, apps, system integrators, government, you name it and it has got a flavor when you're talking about intelligent transport. So how do you confine that to a set of ideas which make it meaningful enough for a panel to kind of have a conversation around is what usually is the challenge when it comes to a thing like intelligent transport, right? So why don't we kind of start hearing from the panelists here, and we'll kind of take that one at a time. So let me introduce and welcome Arun Karna to give you a brief overview of what ITS is all about. Arun is a veteran, works with AT&T. AT&T is a bigger veteran when it comes to intelligent transport systems. In fact, AT&T is one of the first companies in US which introduced the B2C solution, whereas everybody is wondering what is a telco doing in a B2C kind of a solution for a connected car, and that was one of the major steps that AT&T took even before somebody else thought of it. So Arun, why don't you come over and kind of introduce, talk about your ideas?
So am I visible? I know I'm vertically challenged. Hopefully you can see me from the podium here. So first of all, Sagar, thank you for the warm introduction, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to be here in this room with you. Also honored to be on such an elite panel. Everyone is an expert in their own right on the panel here. And we have an interesting topic at hand for the afternoon. So why is transportation important in the first place? I think we all know that, but transportation has a ripple effect on almost all other industries and sectors. It is extremely important for economic growth. It is the lifeblood of the economy itself, if I dare to say so. And a lot is happening in the transportation sector as we speak today. See, so on the one hand, vehicle manufacturers are racing to build the next gen vehicles, making them smarter, more connected, offering very smart mobility services. On the other hand, significant investments are going into the overall transportation infrastructure to make it more integrated at a multimodal level and make it more intelligent. So what I'm going to talk about is basically three global trends that are visible in this space, and they're namely that transportation itself is becoming more and more user-centric. There's more choice and power coming to the passenger or users level. Secondly, transportation systems themselves are getting integrated at an intermodal level and becoming more intelligent. And thirdly, increasing automation is also driving increased safety in these areas. So on to the first one. So transportation becoming more user-centric, what does that really mean? So what it means is that thanks to the digital age which is upon us, there is more and more information and choice available right in the user's hands. So earlier so-called passengers have now become people, and by that what I mean is people demand choice, they demand convenience, they demand customization, and that is coming to the user's hands now. And how is that happening? So there is coming together of three components, of course, as we all know. There is the internet, which is ubiquitous. All the data resides in the internet. There is cheap and ubiquitous access to the internet, thanks to wireless technologies now being available. And the third is, on your smartphone, you have very strong intuitive interfaces which help you make that choice. So for example, if you were an individual in an urban setting, your mobile device would know where you are. It is location aware. You would have a smart app on it on which you would punch your destination, and the app would tell you what is the best mix of modes of transport and routes you could take based on your profile and choices, and also the real-time conditions of the traffic routes and overall infrastructure. And how is this happening? So a lot of it is driven by the open data movement overall in the cities, where transport operators are making available their data in a generally understood format publicly, and developers are using that to create all these smart apps, which would offer choice of routes, services, design, and technology to the users. So that is the first trend that is becoming visible globally. Some of my colleagues here are more adept at talking about the open data movement and what are the challenges on ground and how it's shaping up, but definitely there's a trend visible there. So that's the first trend. The second trend is transportation systems becoming more interconnected and intelligent. So we all know that the power of a network lies in its various interconnections, be it in the data world or in the physical world. So by the way, I come from an industry, we are transporters as well, right? So we are a different kind of transporters. We transport bits and bytes. But hey, in this converged world, we have to have a role in making the physical transportation systems smarter and more intelligent, all right? So basically what's happening in this space is the various modes of transport are getting integrated to form one seamless whole from an end-to-end perspective. So it's becoming more of a system of systems where there's a convergence of connectivity, there's a convergence of end-to-end route optimization, personal experience, choice coming into play, and all that stuff. Now, again, in this space, it is the combination of open data and IoT which is coming to the aid. One more related aspect in this whole scheme of things is breakdown avoidance, for example. Now, we all know that in a transport system, breakdown avoidance is critical. These are live networks. Any breakdown in a live network has consequences. And to avoid, also, to be able to predict and then avoid breakdown is golden. So in this space, as we know, the whole area of asset infosystems combined with predictive analytics is driving the movement where one can predict where or when, under what conditions a breakdown may occur, and take proactive measures to prevent that. Now, where it is going is in the future, hopefully these networks will become self-healing in their own right. This is where it is going to. A great example of this is what we have in the traditional train operations, for example. Now, this is a very traditional form of transport, been around for ages, and traditionally train operators have relied on fixed routes, signaling, operational rules to make sure there's security and efficiency in the system. But now what we have in this arena is something called positive train control. And what it does is it provides for IoT-enabled track equipment whose intelligence, when combined with predictive analytics, enhances greatly the situational awareness of the overall system, so much so that it can predict route conditions and route breakdowns into the future. It provides for absolutely precise information on location, direction, and speed of trains, combines that intelligence with the state of infrastructure, and actually can predict congestion, breakdowns, and if you know that, then that can be avoided. So that's the sort of second trend that we can talk about. The third is increasing automation, which is driving increased security in this area, safety rather. So automation is not new to the transportation industry, as we all know. Automation has been in play greatly in areas like avionics, signaling, and now more and more smart apps are being written out. So it's been always there. And hitherto, a lot of that was driven by advances in science and engineering per se. But now this space is acquiring the kicker of cognitive sciences. So what that means is the ability for the systems to learn on their own, take decisions in real time, and be able to predict conditions into the future is really driving the space and increasing the efficiency and security in this space. So for example, metro services in a city area are sort of prime for this kind of automation because they operate in a fixed geographical network environment. There is high density of traffic, there's high frequency of service, and if you could drive automation which increases safety, and as a result of that, if you could bunch the trains more closely, that certainly increases the efficiency of the system. One more example that I have in this area is actually in a non-urban setting, and I don't know whether it qualifies as ITS, maybe it does, to me it does, and this is in the area of mining. So for example, in mining now, you have autonomous haulage systems, and the centerpiece of that is these huge autonomous trucks. Now these are 400-ton monsters that go into huge mining pits, but guess what? They do not have a driver's cabin at all. But they're bristling with technology. So they have GPS antennae, they have cellular antennae, they have LiDAR, which is the laser-based radar, they have video cameras, and they're all connected in an autonomous environment, and a fleet of 50 such huge trucks is just monitored and managed by two folks sitting in a control room removed from the actual mining area. So imagine what it does to the safety of the mining environment itself, and not having to put actual human drivers into that dangerous position. And this is where automation is driving a lot of safety and security and efficiency in the transportation sector. So that's my sort of opener for the afternoon. We can, of course, interact once everyone has concluded their talk. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And that the whole analogy of transportation as AT&T as a transportation reminded me of a novel from Tom Clancy, where he had written a digital novel where the virtual hackers would hack into the system and imagine the whole internet as a roadway. So if somebody is downloading a large file, they would see a large truck coming towards his router, and then they would try to hack into it and stuff. It was his way of explaining internet in those days, right? I'm going to call on Nitin Akhaury next. He is a part of Decos Asia. Decos Asia is doing a lot of work in digital transformation especially for large enterprises. And that, I think, is the first step when you're talking about ITS, because there are so many players involved that people need to start thinking digital first to be able to actually take advantage of something that is going to become so large and so prominent in our lives. So why don't I kind of call on Nitin and say his few words.
Thanks, Sagar, and thanks, Arun. I thought it was a very nice opener from Arun, giving us a view of where the entire transportation system is moving and what are the innovations that are happening. Mike, is it okay now? Okay. Still higher. Okay.
So that was adjusted for my height.
Okay, understood. It's better now. Yeah, I can hear myself better now. Right. I think I'll share some experiences that we have, personal experiences and also organization experiences for digital transformation. And we just heard from Arun that how dynamic and how vibrant is the ITS sector right now. Probably other sectors were also vibrant at some point of time, and probably it's a time that we learn from them. So two things. One is digital transformation, and secondly is digital transformation applied to the ITS sector, right? So a few learnings from the digital transformation generally that we had. We are an organization who have been in digital transformation for long. Now if you just keep the ITS sector out, and if you just go maybe 2.5 or 3 decades back, and you talk about industries, and maybe some of us who were just budding IT engineers at that point of time, we were extremely happy creating smaller software systems for departments. Do you agree with that? Maybe not all of you. All those who are, have little more gray hair like I have, right? So we would be very happy create some, systems, and then these systems would be serving a department. And then as we moved ahead, a need was felt to integrate them, right? Because it was the departmental silos which had started becoming prominent. And then came the need of integrated systems. So integration is the key, and Arun also talked about it, right? Whatever we do, we have to understand that the value of the total system, the integrated system, is much, much higher than an individual system, a piece. We moved ahead. Integrated systems were created, organizations were happy, industry was happy, right? You have smaller systems, HR, supply chain, manufacturing, fleet management, asset management. They started talking to each other. And then started the process of optimization, right? Yes, my systems are integrated, can I optimize them? Then started product lifecycle management, asset lifecycle management, customer lifecycle management, probably anybody lifecycle management, right? So now you just put LM, lifecycle management, have anything with it, and it becomes a buzzword. But the important thing is the word optimization started. So integration, further helped by optimizations. The third trend that we noticed in last about 15 years is the vibrancy which happened in business. The rate of change became extremely high, to the extent innovation started taking the lead, to the extent that disruptions are now becoming a everyday affair. We agree with that, right? I think disruption is a word that I probably had not internalized till about 4 or 5 years back. But now it's like it's part of our discussion. Disruptions, innovation. 7 years back I was happy talking about innovation because that sounded very new. Now it sounds old. It is disruption now. So when that happens, your systems have to be agile. So integration, optimization, and agility. All this for keeping the customer, the citizen in front. Okay? So 3-4 points we added. Now these are the experiences that we got from digital transformation of organization of industries. Our second part was we started working in the transportation sector about 10-12 years back. We started with the tracker. Everybody has a tracker right now, right? The tracker went through a lot of iterations. Okay, we wanted data in every second, a trip information every second. connection with the OBD devices, right? A lot of things. So we started with the tracker. We made things visible, right? And I'm talking about our experiences of what we had in Europe. Maybe some of it we can apply in India. But tracker was the basis that we started with in the the ITS space. The tracker had to be innovated, had to be extended more because it started working as a information base. But soon we realized that this amount of information that we are getting in the tracker is becoming useful for a lot of other organizations, including, for example, insurance companies. Some of our mobility data that we have, for example, in Europe, are being utilized by insurance companies because it also starts giving the driving behavior. So now we have started adding monetization, more monetization to the data, and started creating more revenue models on this, right? But that was the base, the tracker. Now this is one building block of the ITS. If you come to the second building block, just think from a citizen perspective. We all, as citizens, we need a visibility of our complete transportation system. Be it our buses, be it our metros, be it our local buses or the interstate buses. So we need a very, very strong public information system. And the public information system could be an announcement system, which should be automated, or it could be a display system. I'm talking of something very, very simple. But the point is that while we started building this public information system, the realization came that it needs to interact very well with the tracker. And that is where the experience starts coming, that integration, whatever we design, we have to keep the integration in mind. Okay, so you have the basic system up. There are many building blocks in ITS. I'm just going to touch upon a few of them. Look at the third aspect. As a fleet operator, there are bus operators, there are metro operators. As a fleet operator, I can operate for a longer period of time, if I'm able to do a good scheduling of whatever fleet that I have. It could be taxis, it could be cars, it could be fleet of buses, etc., etc. Right? And hence comes the second aspect of optimization. I need very strong dynamic scheduling engine. Today probably I want to make best use of my fleet and I want to reach on time. Tomorrow maybe I want to reduce my total maintenance cost, and maybe a few days later or a few months later I want to probably improve the customer confidence. So now you see, we started from a tracker, we came to the portion of public information system, and now we are extending it to dynamic scheduling engine. And that's where we said, okay, this is our experience, that dynamic scheduling engine cannot be created by everybody, but we need to partner. The point here is that while we were passing through this journey, we had to keep making our system more and more open, more and more integrable. And that's a part that I think Srinivas is also going to talk about, that while we are designing whether the hardware systems or the software systems, we have to keep it open so that it is integrable. Right? Now, we had an interesting experience in India. In one of the cities in Maharashtra, we provided the citizens with apps whereby they can put their grievance specifically with respect to a transportation system. And we were really surprised that while they gave us a lot of information as to what is going wrong, right, there's a big point that they mentioned. They do not use the transportation system, the public transportation system so much. The reason being, they feel that the buses are very poorly maintained and unreliable. They would rather use Uber Pool, right? I think a lot of us use Uber Pool or would want to use Uber Pool. So now we are taking the information from the citizen, giving it back to the fleet operator, please maintain. And maintenance of buses is not something that can be done, there are many international technologies, you can use the reliability center and maintain, and the predictive analysis which Arun talked about. But the point is, it cannot work as an independent system. It needs to interface with the rest of the the systems, because the data is getting generated as the vehicle is running, and this data is, whether the data is related to the the way the bus is running, or way the condition of the bus, it's all important for the bus maintenance, right? Just the 4 or 5 building blocks is what I've talked about. But if you notice from our experience, we see that from digital transformation of industries, we did realize that integration along with optimization, along with agility is what is the key, and that is the trend that we are increasingly seeing in the IT sector, right? So that was the whole point of my discussion. Let's have, whether we design hardwares, we design softwares, or whether we innovate, to disrupt, we keep in mind that it is a part of the whole. It's not whole by itself. Thank you.
Next I'm going to be calling Jeevan Talegaonkar. Jeevan has been actually looking at ITS implementations. He's got a experience of actually doing ITS implementations in India. He's got knowledge of having done that outside, and he can talk to a lot of things about, specifically when we're talking about creating that open system, when we're talking about creating a system that can be communicated or integrated into different partners. How do you kind of go about building these building blocks?
Thank you, Sagar, for the nice introduction. I'm Jeevan. I'm working with a company called Ericsson, and alongside this distinguished panel, I feel like a night watchman who is asked to bat with Sachin Tendulkar. So he's left with no option but to swing his bats. So let me swing now. There are few trends that we have come across, and they have been even uttered by many marketing research companies who are globally known. It is said that by 2020 we would have 26 billion devices, and those devices will be connected, out of which, if I consider 9 billion as the phones, then there'll be multiple other, which is like 10 plus 7, 17 billion would be the machine-to-machine connections or the IoT connections. And today's network, since we are primarily a network company, I can throw a light upon what network does in terms of enabling this connectivity. Network provides the latency, which is much required for the sensors and devices to talk to the analytics platforms. And the latency of the network is going to go down with the innovation of the cellular technology. So we have 3G almost widely spread across India now. Let me speak in Indian context. And 4G is taking up in India. And very soon, by 2020, we'll see the test beds of 5G coming into vogue. So the cellular connectivity is going to be ubiquitous as far as Indian territories, the territorial coverage is concerned. So what does it mean from an IoT perspective? It's going to propel the ecosystem for connecting more and more devices and more sensors, and that would fuel the growth of analytics applications and the services piece. So if I look at the value pyramid of IoT, then it's exactly inverse to that of the volume pyramid of IoT, because the money is going to lie in application sphere, in analytics sphere, and in services sphere. Devices and the sensors would have a huge volume, but there may not be value in that, because they'll be commoditized to a large extent. Now, why am I saying so? Because this all together, as an advent of the cellular technology, is going to contribute a serious amount of business to the overall industries, and that's going to be in the bracket of $1.9 trillion by 2020 globally. And in India also, we already see that the requirements from our customers are getting matured on IoT space. When it comes to today's session topic, which is around the connected car, I've been interacting with most of the automotive companies in India. So my experience tells me that automotive companies are very innovative companies. They are the ones who had the capital to invest in robotics, right? So, and they had seen the benefits of robotics. It's not only about automation, it's about making automation in inhuman conditions to make sure that the people don't have to work in hazardous conditions anymore, like paint shops. It's not advisable that people work in paint shop all through the day, right? It affects their health. So, if the robots are deployed to do that job, then it's much more advantageous to the company because you take care of the humanity aspect, the welfare of the people, the welfare of the employees. And there is a need now, there is an increasing need for those same automotive companies to innovate further and try to connect their vehicles. And why is it required? Because a car manufacturer, you'd be surprised to know, even doesn't know how many kilometers the car has traveled unless the car comes back to the service center. So it's my own, product which is floating in the market, and I don't know how many kilometers the car has traveled. So normally we take our car to the service center based on the time of purchase, not based on the kilometers traveled. And the OEM doesn't want to service the car based on the time of purchase. They actually want to service the car if it had run some sprint. If it did not, then there's no requirement of servicing the car. But unfortunately, they don't have this data coming in from odometer. That's where few of my friends said that they have the OBD devices. Those devices are going to be available now in almost all the cars in India, if I take a positive an approach. That's primarily because it's a requirement of the OEM, that they want to see what's coming out from the car, what is the exposed data of the car. They want to analyze it. So it's for the diagnostic of the vehicle, that's one. But what is in it for the owner of the car? I'm the owner of the car. I should have some use case for myself as well, right? So that use case is, I want to know where my car is. So it's all about geofencing, because normal problem in India is that if I'm away and my car is parked outside somewhere, then I'm always worried whether my car is there or it's not there, right? So I just want to ping my car and know whether my car exists there. So it's about geofencing my car. If somebody steals my car, I should be able to immobilize the car within 200 meters of its travel. So that's the control I want to have over my car, and there are many other services which could be ridden on this going forward. I also see that there is a virtual marketplace which is possible to be created by the automotive companies in India. And what is that? Once the car is connected, once the data is pulled from the car manufacturers are able to cross-relate that data with their CRM systems. They're able to cross-relate that data with the dealer management systems, and they're able to know that for a particular model, a part A from a vendor X is failing at so-and-so rate, then you can rate your vendors. It gives you an extra mileage or an extra information to do the qualitative analysis of the systems that you had rolled out in the market. And now this is one part. I'm only talking about connected vehicles. Now let me also talk about what's happening around connected vehicles. It's the governments that have public transport, and the governments are getting smarter in terms of their public transport as well. They're also fueling in investments. So if I'm just a commuter, I'm just a citizen, right? And if I get a much better public transport ride from my home to my office, I would not take my car out. And that's very human. So if it's all happening around the car manufacturers, just look at their psyche. So what they think now is they got to sweat their assets. The cars that exist in the market have to pay them more. The ROI on the car has to be much more than what it is today. So there is a pressing requirement to connect the cars. And it's not only about the cars, as my friends talked about, it's also about the fleet. It's also about the demand aggregators like the cab companies. Nonetheless, it's also about the railways. Of late, Indian Railways has been working on GSM for railways. So their communication happens on GSM network that they have got. But they also want to work on LTE network now, because they want more speeds, less latency. They also want infotainment services to be rendered to the commuters so that they have altogether a very different level of experience. of browsing the catalogs, seeing the news, downloading videos. So everything, it has to be seamless. And it's not only from an infotainment perspective, but it's also from a critical services perspective or operations perspective of railways, because there are a lot of accidents which are happening. And IoT will help stitch the security part of Indian Railways going forward. There is a need for cooperative transport, because somebody has said, for example, there is a car company which connects the data to its own cloud for its own fleet of cars, right? There's similarly other car company, but what does it mean for the state transport authority? The data from different cars are going to their own individual clouds. So there is someone who is putting all this data together into one cloud for the state transport authorities, and then there are some correlations which are drawn on that to make sure that the street traffic is controlled. For example, if an accident takes place on a particular route, the same time alert goes from state transport authorities to the cars which are following that route, saying slow down, there is an accident, or there's a slippery road, or something of that sort. So that's going to be a cooperative traffic scenario which is going to kick in with connecting the vehicles. Now the last thing, I see there are few trends which are already taking shape in different forms in Indian market. One, definitely we talked about immensely, that's about connecting the vehicles. Then there is something about electrifying the vehicles. So it's about the batteries, right? We will see the advent of battery operated vehicles more and more in future, rather than the diesel or the petrol operated vehicles. Then the cooperative transport, because the states are also interested in doing adaptive traffic management system for their own benefit, for the benefit of the society, for the benefit of the climate, for the benefit of the citizen. Automated vehicles or automated transport is another trend, but somehow I think that it is too early for India to talk about automated transport. But as one of my colleagues pointed out, it could still be used in hazardous conditions like mines or like the ports, where it's not advisable that there's a human driving the vehicle. It could be automated. And with the technology like 5G, it becomes much easier for us to give that touch or give the haptic to someone who could drive that vehicle remotely and not necessarily being there on the ground to drive the vehicle. Last point, this would all, to my knowledge or my mind, would result into sustainable environment for all of us. And a simplest definition of sustainability that I had come across ever is this: meeting the needs of today without compromising on the needs of tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeevan. Next one, call on Kaushik Shah. Kaushik is from KPIT. KPIT has been doing a lot of projects around ITS. They have a lot of inside info on what happens in the ITS sphere. So, Kaushik, over to you about your thoughts, and then we can.
Thank you, Sagar. Good afternoon. Great, great. So I think typically after 4th or 5th, in the series, I wanted to kind of wake up myself as well and with you, especially in the afternoon session, right? So, okay, the topic is intelligent transport systems, okay, but if you see, it is tightly coupled with the smart city initiatives, right? So I would like to, kind of touch something very basic about, the smart cities. I think I am a speaker across in India. I usually travel and, kind of ask their opinion about what is smart city. So I think I wanted to ask a question in the podium saying that, what is smart city? Right, so major feedback which I get from, people is saying that, hey, something which is, it is done in US, is that the one which is in the smart city, right? That's what is a smart city. Someone says, hey, which is done in Japan, that is the one in Asia. That's the one which is good one. Someone says in London, and someone says, right, see, my thought is like this, right? See, the first thing is, if I want to take back you in 2500 BC, Mohenjo-daro, right? So it is India's, I would treat that as a first smart city. Why I'm saying so? I think smart city is something which is addressing the basic necessity of people, okay? So that was a, a city which was like a planned, addressing the, requirement of needs of the people for transportation to make that is efficient. So I'm going, kind of very back in that level. And the same scenario, which is also efficient transportation, that means, because that was, a sailing in the boat and stuff like that. Today we are into a different, context. So why I'm bringing this is, intelligent transport is nothing which we can, kind of bring it somewhere from outside, paste it here. Oh yeah, now it is becoming, we are going to become like Europe or something. No, it's not so. It has to address, very basic necessity of, people who are in, part of the city. So, and the maturity of the citizens staying in different cities also different, right? So that's the point I want to drive it. So, so that's something, which is, and I'll tell you, some of the, when I say maturity of the ecosystem and environment, some of the examples that I would cite. In Indian context, smart cities, people go for a smart bin, for example, right? Now, smart bin was not working, and people find out, hey, why is it not working? Well, people putting garbage around the bins. It never kind of fill up and not giving any trigger to the central command center to pick up the garbage. So I think it's all depends on how, you see the kind of, people's ability, right? So how, people have culture to kind of, acquainted with the smart city. So that's very important. Now let me put straight away to the topic, why ITS, okay? Why, what's the need of ITS, first of all, right? So I think, and there are various research, and I think, across India, which talks about, passenger safety, okay? So like 88% of women feels unsafe while traveling the public transportation. Some data which I would like to cite, and then I would like to connect the, to the topic. Inefficient public transport, okay, which means like 48,000 breakdowns annually is happening on the road, okay? And if you see today the topic, the real data, which is 13% of STU, state transport units are only in profit, right? So which signifies that how efficient we are in terms of operating this. Basically, STUs are not kind of operating profit, right? So the expenses which, so return, ROI, which is a, important topic why, people putting in a lot of money inside, whether it is giving ROI or not, right? The third point is demand versus supply planning, right? So, I think you talked about dynamic, planning, schedule planning. See, sometimes what happens is you do not have an idea that in certain areas, you are putting so many buses for people to kind of pick up where there are only few passengers. And the other way around, somewhere, you are putting very less buses and, there are no passengers. So this is demand versus supply. When you talk about it, like the dynamic adaptation of your pulse, where, the people are available, then you put your fleet on the road to pick up those. So I think that largely will give you, so that's which is missing, right? And high emissions, which is like, carbon emission and stuff. So in summary, first is the safety. Second is operational efficiency, right? So which is, your revenue maximization and the cost, which is an issue. And third is the greener in terms of emissions. Now, let me come to the topic where when we talk about ITS, what is ITS? What are the key components? Now, kind of all smart cities, like 100 smart cities, and people are talking about typical ITS components. So let me give you some insight on that. So there are two things which is, so there is a urban ITS, urban buses, which is having ITS, and there are long route buses, which is, your interstate and intercity transport. When I talk about urban city, there is a different ITS requirement on bus. So let me put on bus component first. Now on bus component comprises of, your GPS systems, your LED boards, your camera systems, your surveillance, your mic and speaker, so that stuff, which is, making your buses, when it, kind of, that's one of the important components, which is a sensor, okay? So it comprises of gyros and stuff like that. So that is your basic, kind of bus infrastructure, okay? Second is the vehicle to infrastructure. So when you talk about infrastructure, it's your command center, right? So all buses, sending the data onto the, central command center. I missed out one of the point which is part of the bus, which is a CAN. Okay, your GPS system should also talk to the engine CAN system to grab all this data, right? So that is one of the information which is also sent out to the command center. Command center is the one where, it will help operators to operate efficiently. When I think, whatever I talked about, couple of stuff you would be able to see, you can imagine that it's a Google map on, you will see all this, kind of all buses around. You would have certain operations, which is, while the passengers are getting challenges that you can resolve. So that is the second piece, which is a central command center. Third, the passenger information system. When I say passenger information system, there are, couple of elements, but one you can see on the bus stops and bus terminals, right? Like in airport, you can see all TVs or maybe LED boards. People would get all information about, hey, when the next bus is going to come and what time it is, right? So it is, that's the third element, which is the passenger information system. People, I think the mobile application, which is, my colleague was talking about, which is also one of the important elements, giving information about the real time when the bus is going to hit the bus stop, right? So there is, so that planning would be better for people. The fourth is automatic fare collection. When I say automatic fare collection, you must have witnessed, electronic ticketing machine with the conductor, typically carrying out, and for cash and cashless both. Now, smart card stuff which you can tap it and, kind of get the ticket out of it. Then there is, a validator, I would say. There is, point of sale where smart card can be charged. So largely, when I see in the Indian context, the ITS has these four elements, and there might be other elements which are like parking, but which comes outside the window of ITS. All right. So these are the stuff which is there in the ITS context, being implemented in ITS. Now let me share some of the experience on the ground. So I think when I say we have on the bus, so there is a UBS2. UBS2 stands for Urban Bus Specifications Standard 2, which was, recently, not recently, I would say maybe 3 years ago, Ministry of Road Transport, MOUD has released that and invited all the companies to kind of, say that, build your hardware, put on the buses and, start operating. So we have deployed since, 6,000 plus buses across India, and rolled out across 33 STU, state transport units, and deployed this stuff across India. Of course, there were many challenges in terms of operations, because these buses, you can imagine, that would have your a point of interest, which is called as the bus stop POIs. That needs to be done, so that like in train, when you see that the next bus stop announcement is comes, right. So that is very, very important, and most of the time you feel kind of accuracy issues in terms of kind of having the right point of interest, which is nothing but your lat long, to be fed into the part of the database. So that is on the bus. We give end-to-end solutions. So whatever I mentioned about these four components, we give end-to-end solutions. We have done a couple of deployment at Haryana. We have done it in Pune also. We have done like 1,000 plus buses installed with GPS systems. We also have done MSRTC, the buses which are running between Mumbai, Pune, the typical Volvo buses where we have done end-to-end solution. Amritsar BRTS, where we are rolling out the complete operations, the complete end-to-end solution. So let me share those experiences with you. What really happens on the ground. Now, what we realize is, of course, when I go back to why we need ITS. So there are safety, passenger convenience, the operational efficiency. There are a couple of points which I highlighted. And where do we stand as on, right? Because while you start implementing this, you have certain challenges, right? So what we have done is through surveillance camera, which is there on the buses, we started populating all this stuff on the central system, and which is to a greater extent helped operators to understand the what's going inside the bus. If there are incidences which we kind of helping them to analyze, number one. Number two, the driver behavior. Okay. Now, which is a very interesting part. Let me spend a couple of minutes on this. Driver behavior, so we extract a lot of information out of CAN, right? So this particularly, give you a different information. So for example, if the driver is, putting a harsh braking, harsh acceleration, overspeeding. This kind of scenarios you can immediately, kind of put back to the central system. Earlier it was not been noticed at all. The passengers were getting a lot of troubles because of these issues. But now because, the system is monitoring, you would be able to kind of get all these alerts on the back of the system. You would be able to kind of even say that, okay, this alert has come at so and so time. These are the number of times the driver has done the harsh acceleration braking. Naturally, there is an impact. When you do harsh acceleration braking, okay, there is a high impact on the system performance. Even the OEM which are providing the buses, there is a high impact on that. Let's say there is a problem on the drivetrain, there is a problem on your clutch and your brake pad, right? So there is sort of these instances which has started monitoring. This is kind of bringing very slowly. I wouldn't say that it has stopped everything, but at least the governance model has come into picture, which is kind of helping on the bus operators, public transportation to some extent. Skip stop, for example, okay. Nobody was earlier monitoring whether the bus really stopped. The passengers are standing on a bus stand, but the bus doesn't stop, right? Who is there to kind of say that bus has really stopped? But this system kind of automatically generates an alert on the system saying that the bus has not stopped, okay, and there is some algorithm which helps to kind of do at the back end system to identify which bus, which route, which bus stop have been skipped. So you would be able to kind of say that, hey, this driver has an issue, right? So this is various categories you would be able to kind of configure the driver behavior, right? So you would be able to say the good driver or bad driver, stuff like that you can kind of quantify the back of the system. I would like to talk about the, certain scenarios which was, very Indian context is the idling part. So rather than using the horn, he'll put an accelerator, right? There is somebody who is in front of him, just put boom, boom, right? So I'm the bus driver, right? But what is going inside is the, fuel, right? So this is the, sometimes, it's idling and keeping the engine on for a lot of time duration, right? So which is having a lot of impact. Now, who is going to monitor? So I think what I'm trying to say, this driver behavior perspective, all the parameters, you can capture that and see on the backing system that, hey, there is something wrong with the driver. It's not very efficient, not efficient. And also there is a possibility that drivers being analyzed will be route-wise, bus-wise, and your kind of city-wise, depot-wise. This is why it is important. Sometimes the vehicle itself is bad. So I think my colleague said just now that, sometimes the vehicle is so bad, you cannot get the good efficiency out of it and then you penalize the driver, right? So that's not correct. You have to be, your system should be such a way that you should be identify the really bad driver to kind of take action on. Because the bus is not efficient, nobody can do it anything to, drive it efficiently. So those are the stuff which you can do at the back-end system to analyze that what's really wrong, with, is it the driver or is it the bus, right? The third parameter is, VHMD. This is Vehicle Health Monitoring Diagnostics, okay? So this is specially we have done it in Pune, okay? So what is it? So okay, let me put it, I think most of the time we talk about some jargons, but it's very important, the usage of that. Pune, there are many buses which are failing on road, okay? So you can imagine that the bus which is traveling, started from the airport and stuck somewhere because of engine not maintained or, brake pedal problems or maybe drivetrain problems and stuff like that. Now you can imagine that, to clear that, traffic guys has to come there, remove the vehicle somewhere. The maintenance guy would come from the, depot, bring that bus, another bus he has to carry, take to the, workshop. Lot of efforts, right? Now, this was an attempt in Pune. What we have done is that we have put, system on to visualize the operator in a very simpler manner. Before he takes the vehicle out, he has to see a panel saying that, okay, this is green or amber or it's a red. Okay, what is that? Now, you would know that on the can, there are a lot of parameters coming, like engine parameters, right? So, engine temperature or coolant temperature, coolant pressure and blah, 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 right? This has been brought into a status which is meaningful for operators. So operator will say, give me something which is, if it is green, then I will take the bus out, right? All the parameters should be green. Now on the back-end system, these all parameters have been configured such a way that it will give this meaningful output, because those are engineering parameters. If you say that engine temperature is 150, that guy will not understand. If you say it is a red, he will say, okay, stop the vehicle, let it go to workshop, let me maintain that in then it should put on the road. So this was a small attempt done, and I think of course this is a sort of a reactive, I would say. The proactive is that of course it has to maintain well, but again both the things are very, very important in terms of your operations. At least some mechanism is available. If it is the proactive mechanism is not efficient, you can still have a backup mechanism for reactive. So this is what we have done on the ground, and I think a couple of implementation that we have done, including the passenger app, okay, and the passenger information systems on the bus terminals, bus stops, which is giving ETA and ETD, estimate of time of arrival and departure accuracy, which is largely computed and kind of different algorithm for tuning, whether it is a city buses or it is long road buses. And this is really, let me share with you, it takes long time to kind of implement on the ground, because what happens is when you start implementing the day one, people were expecting, hey, give me something, the bus is not giving the right information. It takes its own learning curve to gather the data, to put in the algorithm and tuning it, and then it will give you certain stuff, So this is what we have observed on the ground. While this is a good experience, let me share some of the other experience also, bad experience I would say, because I think when we talk about other countries here looking various good things, here the drivers feel that somebody is tracking them. So they will try to temper the system. So they will remove the wires, they will cut the wires and then make the system not running as per expectation. So these are the typical challenges would come, it will go against the system. Today, I don't think so there is any governance by operators or the public transportation who will take strict action against them, because you don't have any evidences. Those are like, when the bus is parked in the off hours, people will do this sort of exercise. So there also we had a lot of challenge, and other side you have strict SLAs that, the bus should be up and running in, let's say 12 hours, or, after the incidents and so. So it is very, very challenging part, because, the bus typically comes in the night, between 12 o'clock to 4 o'clock. You have to depute your people on the ground to fix it up on the buses. Fix whether it is, fuse has gone or, the wiring harness has been tempered, the box is open, they will try to put whatever water on top of it, whatever, right? So there are a whole bunch of, and I would say if there are calls, 100 calls, 80% are tempered. 20% may be some genuine stuff, right? But it is difficult to kind of do it. So I think that's something which is we have experienced from the ground, and that's the real challenge. You will feel it, because and that's the reason why I'm saying, when you want to see that all success, which I mentioned in the initial why we need ITS, we are here kind of very far from that as of now, because once people will start understanding on this, even the drivers and entire system, they will understand the benefits. They'll start using the system. It will go to some level, and I think that the maturity probably it's maybe level 3 or level 4 where we'll reach later. Okay, so that's one part, and last topic which I want to talk about is what is next. Okay, what's next going to come? So there is AIS 140. Okay, AIS 140 is already been released, and Gazette notification already been announced. Based on this, every vehicles post March 18 needs to be in compliance to every vehicles. When I say every vehicles, it's not just the buses for public transportation. Every vehicles running on the road, whether it is car or your trolley, big vehicles and stuff like that. Every vehicle needs to comply. Now this AIS 140 is having a very stringent specification. All GPS devices needs to comply with certain specifications. The safety perspective, the data part especially, is there are some data which is open and some are secured, and I think there is a kind of obvious reason why those not need to be shared, because there are other activities which can the safety perspective that can hamper. So I think there is a this is what is been released as for the AIS 140. Even the hardware is also like complying with the embedded SIM. So earlier was a SIM card slot based. Okay, so now it is coming with the embedded SIM. So it is like a small IC, which is you would not be able to recognize, oh, this is a SIM card. So it is all configured from your backend systems. Okay, so this is something which is going to come, and I think security perspective, data security, there are a lot of action being taken. The satellites which is needs to be kind of tracked is also like INR SS, the Gagan satellites, where the Indian scenarios being taken up. And so that's one thing which I would like to share with you, what is going to come next. And the other part is ITS association. So I think this is little, like other countries, other countries has, kind of ITS association where people kind of get together and kind of, talk about the real problems and, talk, the ITS specification. This is not, this is currently absent in India, but this is the steps are being taken care of today. So with this, I thank you very much for your time, and thank you.
Okay, thanks, Kaushik. Finally, last but not the least, I'm going to call upon Srinivas to come and share his thoughts. Srinivas runs an interesting company called Openstats. They say, articles say that data is the new oil. Probably Srinivas would hate that, because people will start fighting, right? Because people fight for oil. So he wants data to be like air, which is available free for everyone. So over to Srinivas to talk about how data is changing.
I'm going to measure my time so that I don't make you skip your lunch. I'm a researcher, but who is connected to the communities in India. The panelists over there have set the agenda for different sectors within transportation: cars, buses, primarily motor vehicles. Let me talk about pedestrians, cyclists, people who are not being included in the whole smart cities ecosystem. So what are their rights? So the city or the government officials are implementing so many of these systems in the name of benefit for people. But are we really benefiting from them? How would you even know? The only way you would know is if they're transparent, you could measure them yourself. They say that they're measuring. They have all these systems with various abbreviations. I'm not sure how many of you actually could understand the abbreviations, but certainly the bus drivers or the bus operators, they have no clue what they stand for. All they understand is the green, yellow, and the red systems. It works or it doesn't work. But frankly, there's an active community. I mean, when you look abroad or when you look within India, there's a community of people, urbanists, who are very interested to make sure that their city doesn't get destroyed. If you look at Bangalore, there's an active community who has trying to save all the trees to be chopped off before a steel fire would come up, right? So what I focus on with these communities and my startup focuses on is primarily making sure all the data which gets generated in this process of building systems, building smart cities, is open. When I say all, well, most of it. Open data is basically public data owned by the public. The state is just a custodian of the data. So what we are saying that public data, like locations of the buses, should be accessible to public through APIs, through Excel sheets, whatever way they can publish it. When I say that, I mean you respect the privacy of citizens as well. It's not that you publish data of ambulances which are taking patients with whose personal information is published along with this. I'm only saying that you publish that ambulance is moving at a certain location so that other vehicles, if they have this access to this data, will automatically go side and stop. It's important for the connected systems, connected cities and the connected car space that they know that they have to give space for the emergency vehicles. And this will only happen when these systems are communicating, and that will not happen until the government agencies or these private agencies which are developing these systems communicate at a particular standard, and this is open. So it is important that most of the work we are doing is not proprietary and it is made available to everybody. At the same time, when each of the industries are promoting technologies, they have their own proprietary technologies. So if a city like Pune is going towards a particular company, company A, but city like Hyderabad or Bangalore is going to a company B, suddenly if you want to compare two different cities, how they are ranking over the metrics, you can't, because these systems are different, that data parameters which are being collected in each of these systems are different. There's no standard in which these companies have to agree that we will follow. The whole smart city space is evolving, and it is very important to be recognizing these problems, that when you look at the technology which is being developed, that they comply to certain particular standards. As has been mentioned, that the government is now working on some of them. Like for example, the bus specifications have come out. Similarly, there are a few other standards. If you remember, there is this automatic toll collections, which is FASTag. It itself is a standard for the whole country. And you could look at the National Common Mobility Card. How many of you use a metro card here? Everybody? Yeah, but try using that for a bus system. It won't work. Right? And if you go in a city like Bombay, there are 8 different bus agencies. BEST, Thane Municipal Corporation, Navi Mumbai Municipal Corporation, every one of them runs their own bus systems, and each of them wants to get a different company with a different standard, with a different tech, which doesn't communicate to each of them. Why not I get a common card which works anywhere, any public transportation? Well, some of these discussions are happening and the government is bringing up with standards. But as industry also should recognize some of this, and they should also push some of these standards. There are some standards which have been in this industry for more than a decade, but yet no single agency in the country uses them. If you look at Google Maps, if you go abroad, Google Maps gives you locations of public buses. But that doesn't happen in India. They'll give you the static schedules, but not the real-time location of buses, even though the locations are available. If you remember the Delhi odd even scheme, it was announced that they are going to share all this real-time data with Twitter, Google Maps, but that never really happened. This is what open data is all about, open standards is all about. You share information to others, and this helps commuters. This helps industries to build further tech which is interoperable. So you build one thing, it can be applied anywhere and any part of the country. But as of now, there are a lot of problems and challenges in this space, but if you want to go into the future, especially in the connected city space, in fact, when you say connected city space is not here in India, it is actually here. There are a couple of implementations in Bangalore and Ahmedabad when an ambulance is near the traffic signal, like 100 or 200 meters away from the signal goes green. It's a partial pilot implementation where the ambulance transpons a code that I am near signal and the signal goes green. But there is no standard around this. The first pilot, large-scale pilot around this space, on the connected city space, is happening in New York with MTA buses and the traffic signals in New York. When we are talking about that we need to get there, we need to build systems, we need to discuss more about it. And as was being mentioned, that there needs to be an ITS association of sorts. Industries, governments, researchers, everybody should come together. And while we do this, we should not forget citizens who also have immense knowledge about their cities, who can help push standards which are agreeable to everybody and everybody can develop together. So, and these are very important as we go because there have been lot of failures. Smart cities is not, ITS rather, intelligent transportation systems are not nothing new. They were been there before the smart cities mission came. There are implementations in Pune, Chennai, Bangalore, even Delhi. The Delhi implementation was way before, started in 2009. So it is very important that if you don't want the industry to die with all the failures, as far as you cannot quantify these as successes because there are no official metrics which are public. If you want people to actually understand and use these, then these systems needs to be more open and more helpful for everybody. And while we do this, we need to take everybody together. And my company basically exactly does that. We build systems to help government agencies bring more transparency and engagement with public agencies, private agencies as well as the public. That's pretty much it. I hope I didn't bore you guys and you're not sleepy. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks. Yeah.
So the plan was basically to kind of open it up for the audience to ask any specific questions. We're thinking of kind of dividing that into three, to ask like any questions that you have, but we're kind of opening up first. Okay, can we have some mics going on? Yes, she's getting you a mic. Yeah.
Hi. I have a question from Mr. Kaushik Shah. Since we talk about the technologies related to the buses, so like we see the services provided to the passengers like abroad. So like here, when we have to stop the vehicle, we have to ask them to stop the vehicle. You have to shout loud. You're sitting at the back seat and you have to shout loud to stop the bus. So there should be this push button, on every seat, so that you just have to push the button and the bus stops where you want to stop.
Very good question, and I appreciate that. See, this was implemented in Indore, okay? So there was two things. It was, so emergency. So there were two buttons, okay? Bus stop button and emergency button. Both were on the poles. But I think from the Indian context, people have a tendency, oh, there is a push button, let me press that. Okay, so there was an emergency button pressed so many times. Okay, that was there. It was sent to Central Command Center. Say there is some emergency, let have police and everything, and then it did not work. And said, okay, let me disable the emergency button. Push buttons for the buses. Okay, it is going to come and it is addressed in AIS 140. Okay, it is mandatory now to have emergency buttons in all those buses. Okay, so now AIS 140, which says that your GPS device with embedded emergency button control. So all these poles would have emergency button, but I think push buttons right now it is left to the OEMs to put it how they want to do it. From safety perspective they have addressed, but not from the passenger convenience perspective. But I think it is left to individual OEMs to kind of support this. So as of now, so what you say is right in a way. Emergency button, okay, I'll put this way. For Pune, there were a new stuff which is going on. I think the new buses, AC buses, all buses having mandatory push buttons on all the poles for bus stops. So that has been taken care of. But I think it is still going on, not across as a standardization. So I think a couple of people also say that if it is a regulation, all has to manage and maintain, which is not kind of mandatory as of now.
So in a different context, when you talk about buttons, right? So Delhi was the study where all of this was primarily implemented. But from a safety buttons point of view, panic buttons, if you go check out any auto rickshaw, the auto rickshaw has a GPS meter with start trip, end trip buttons as well as a panic button. This was all implemented back in 2013. And after Delhi, it was considered that Delhi was a successful case and they have made it mandatory across the country through official notifications. Okay, so yes, that's a good suggestion from a bus perspective, but all of these are evolving. But if you look at what's happening in Delhi, half of these things don't work. Even though they consider it as a well-implemented pilot, because instead of, there needs to be a fine balance between tech and capacity building. Cops should also be aware of this, so should be the bus operators who understand this, and so should be the public. The general awareness is not at that stage where these systems will work out of the box. This is a gradual progress and it's going to take time when we get there.
I understand, but I think if you need to work out on it, you can put the announcement or something, because obviously when the things doesn't come up, how will the public be known about these things? I mean, there should be done something. You cannot just say that, you know, the people are not aware of these things and we cannot work on these, like he says, the people press the emergency button. So people should be aware of this. Maybe you should do some things, you know, that people should be aware, maybe some kind of announcement, or it should be written there so that people know, okay. So after some time, people will get used to it and they'll get to know.
I'll tell you something interesting about this. In fact, most of these boxes in auto rickshaws, you can't press those buttons. They'll keep it locked in a metal box because the cost of the sensor is so high, he doesn't want it to fail with rain or somebody stealing it. He won't even let you press. The problem with India is enforcement. We could bring a lot of regulations, we could make public aware, but it still boils down to regulations, and it's going to be a challenge. We're trying to get there through technology. We're trying to make sure that technology makes things transparent so that enforcement is easier. Now you can question government, say, hey, this happened, what did you do about that? But it's not going to be an overnight change. It's going to take time. But yes, what you say is true, but it's going to take time.
Yeah.
Any other
All right,
questions
thank you.
from the, yeah, can we get a mic here, please? There's one question there and then.
Hi, Justin from Hitachi. Just to follow up on her statement, I think one of the things we miss in smart cities often is public outreach for a variety of different projects. I think it's a really valid point that we need to do, but my question is not related to that. So this question is for Arun, Jeevan, and Srinivas. So we're talking about all this data that's being generated from vehicles. Where do you see monetization of that data by your companies, or the sharing of data with other companies, startups in the area to gain intelligence about the city, generate new potential business models, and also potential applications that will help build smart cities, not specifically from your company perhaps, but from perhaps startup ecosystems and other companies in the area?
Understand. Thank you. So somebody did mention while giving the presentation that the data which comes from the vehicle goes to a cloud, and the cloud is owned by, say, an auto company. Okay. Now there are several ecosystem players in making that car, manufactured. So those ecosystem players, they also port their product or services on that platform. Let me give an example. Suppose I know that XYZ car is up for renewal, insurance renewal. So the insurance company is onboarded. And if I, as a user of that car or owner of that car, I just renew my insurance there. So a part of that fees goes to the auto company. And insurance company opens up a different tertiary revenue stream for them through a different channel which they wouldn't have visualized earlier. Now, the car company has the data coming in from the car which tells them about the driver behavior. So I can sell that data as a car company to the insurance company, saying now you can design different plans for different drivers based on their behavior. So premium changes as per the owner's driving ability. So likewise, there could be multiple cases.
Well, there are multiple models which could come up. Well, one of that model is you sell data, raw data. But the other thing is use publicly available data with different other systems. For example, there are these companies which have been using or crowdsourcing locations of buses in Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities of India where you don't have GPS systems. And then they would sell the bus tickets. They'll tell you where the bus is, and they'll partner with the bus agency to say, hey, we'll also sell bus tickets for you because we have so many customers and we're improving people to ride the bus. right? So it's data being integrated or being tied up with something else. Data as such not essentially always has the value unless you know how to club, how to combine it and generate these revenue models. So, well, we're still evolving at this stage, but I'm not sure if we ever get a data marketplace. I think Hitachi is working on some of this, where you're trying to do this at Amsterdam, where you're trying to make people share data, sell it. Data marketplaces could be a future where different people could sell this.
So just want to add, I think what we see in the government sector as of now is coming with the different models. So, conventionally is CapEx, OpEx, the OpEx and PPP, public-private partnership. Under which, if you have certain ideas to even monetize those data and everything, of course everything forms as a part of tender, but those ideas can be captured inside and, could be a alternate revenue generation model. And that can square off against your investment. So you can say to government saying that, hey, you had certain plans for investment. With this alternate model, it can be lowered down to XYZ, right? So that's the model. So I think that is also getting prominent across in India, but I think formalization of that is very, very critical part. Let's say you need to articulate well in terms of, so that it becomes, kind of, from the parity perspective, right? Other guys can also kind of check on this. So I think, in my view, there is a huge potential basis the government policies as of now.
I'd like to add to that, and I think it's been well articulated already. I think generally in the space of connected vehicles or connected assets, various stakeholders can make use of this sort of common set of data. So one is from whoever is providing the maintenance or upkeep services, for example, and by looking at the data analysis and applying predictive analytics on where a breakdown might occur, so calling in the asset or vehicle early before it actually breaks down. Also, depending on once you have built an experience of along the time series, where exactly to stock spares, what kind of spares to stock where do you actually locate your maintenance center so that your response time is reduced. I think those are the facets that come into play for the maintenance or care provider. From someone already talked about how insurance players come into play, so they can actually tailor their policies, insurance policies, premiums, and the actual insurance offers based on the data and analytics that is available on that. Thirdly, for the manufacturer itself, the data is golden in terms of continually improving performance of all the vehicular subsystems, engines, on-road performance, and actually being able to test future models before they're actually put on road by making use of past data analytics. So I think all three stakeholders benefit from essentially the same set of data. Hopefully that answers the question.
We'll just take his question. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Abhijit. So there was a discussion on how insurance companies can use the IoT device.
Abhijit, can you name the name of the company also?
I am from Hero MotoCorp.
Okay.
So there was discussion on insurance companies and also on the immobilization feature. So my question is to Mr. Nitin. The question is, have you seen any of the finance companies using this kind of IoT device and foresee any reduction in finance cost or thefts being prevented and hence the financial costs going down? Have you seen any such use cases anywhere in the world?
You're talking about the financial companies?
Yes, finance companies who give out the loans.
Yeah, insurance companies. So we have experience about insurance companies.
No, finance companies.
Talking about loan banking.
Banking companies, finance.
Not of my experience. So we've not come across, in our experience, we've come across